Welcome back. My name is Lajoie Bradley and this is my channel. We are taking a pause in between seasons for transformation to expansion to just really take a break, take some ease, and helping y'all do exactly this. So make sure to like and subscribe and let's get into the video. So as y'all saw from the thumbnail, I said to stop following the feeling, follow your instead, okay? And this is something that took me a long time to get to, y'all. Because I think a lot of us, when, we're called to follow the feeling, I think one, we don't know what that feeling is. We're coming from a background of being led by our thoughts, making decisions from our thoughts, thinking through problems in our reality, thinking through problems in life that we feel, there's no solution to, looking for problems, thinking of who can help us with these problems, thinking of who can provide us with answers. And if that's you, this video is for you, okay? Because I was there for many years. And when I started to really step into the whole spiritual reality, which is the reality we live in, but really step into the more esoteric parts of myself. I was called to follow my feeling, follow your heart. That's what everybody says, follow your heart. When I followed my heart, not all of the experiences that I had were the most pleasant, to be completely honest. And so that really left me questioning, am I following my feeling? What am I really following? And, people think that our ego is just our thoughts, but sometimes our ego or the shadow parts of ourselves also rule our emotions and our feelings. And some of our feelings aren't feelings from the core of who we truly are, okay? And so because I had just been at this space where I was called to shift into my feelings and shift into the way I was navigating life, but I didn't know who I was deep down in my core. It didn't lead me, sometimes it led me to really great places. I have to admit, great places, great people, great situations, great food, okay? But then sometimes it led me to situations where I was like, what is going on, And I think that's the part that a lot of influencers, spiritual gurus don't talk about. And it's at least when they're selling you something, they don't talk about it. Or maybe they do. But my point is, I followed that feeling. I followed the feeling of excitement for so long. And at least I tried to. I have to admit, I don't think I've gone a whole year of only following excitement. Please let me know if you know anybody who's ever done that. Because I feel you do have emotions that come up that you have to sit with, that you have to process. But there was a moment where I had to stop following the feeling. I had to be like, you know what, let's follow something a little deeper. Let's go a little deeper. What's coming up? Because I kept on thinking that this feeling and that feeling was the truth. But really that feeling was just, sometimes an obstacle, or it was just a lesson to be learned. Or it wasn't the truth of who I am as a person and what I came here to do. Sometimes the feeling was really a feeling about something that was projected onto me by somebody else. Whether it was some character on TV, because yes, we do get influenced by those a lot, okay? Or some influencer on Instagram or TikTok. Our brains, people don't realize, but they say that when we're younger, our brains are like a sponge, but actually our brains are always like a sponge. Always. Always, always, always. If it wasn't, then, my friend who watched a horror movie yesterday she would tell me, not yesterday, but she watched it a couple months ago and she was just like, I don't know how, but I just can't get those images out of my mind. And I'm like, yeah, because your mind is absorbing it like a sponge. And I'm talking, she can quote some of the characters in that movie, okay? Our brains are always like sponges. It's not something that we have when we're little. It's just that now our brains are filled in with more stuff, okay? The difference, when you have a beginner's mind or when you're a baby, you don't have anything. Your brain is empty, right? But that ability to absorb things and integrate it into ourselves, that is still there. And it's very, very active, even in your daily life. And so there's this process of cleaning yourself. There's this process of cleaning and clearing what's there. And that process can be super intense in many different ways, okay? Some people, they go through that process by, having that little plant medicine ceremony. Some people go through that process by meditating, doing an intensive meditation retreat. Some people just have life happen to them, and that's the process. It was literally life was happening to them. And so, but that process of feeling, that process is what's really going to empower you to get to the truth of what you should follow. And that truth is, wait for it, drum roll, okay, your intuition. I think some of y'all know this, right? Your intuition. Now, that's the other thing too. People say, you have to follow your intuition. And even when I was presented with this idea, past, one side, I went from following my thinking to following my feeling. And then I went to following my intuition. When somebody told me to follow my intuition, I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Because I've spent the majority of my life following my thoughts, and then maybe the past couple years following my feelings. And now you're telling me to follow something completely different that I haven't really been relying on. And there's some people that have relied on their intuition a lot. I think a lot of sports players are really in tune with their intuition, really in tune, because they need to use it when they're playing games. When it comes to using your intuition, the first thing is knowing and being in tune with your ability to recognize when it's coming up. When the feeling of your intuition is coming up, recognize it, acknowledge it, be like, oh, this is my intuition. When somebody told me to follow my intuition, I had to really reflect. When were the times when I had followed my intuition? When were the times where I was forced to follow my intuition? Where I had that gut feeling and either I followed it or I didn't. And because we don't highlight those parts of our lives, there were very few instances coming to me, okay? But one instance that I remember was from when I was traveling. And of course, so I'm washing clothes right now, y'all. I'm washing clothes. Sorry, that was not the toilet, okay? I know some of y'all thought it. It's not. But back to what I was saying. It was when I was traveling. I had met this girl who told me about this place called Huatulco in Mexico. And my friend didn't want to go, but I was like, no, she told me there's this magical jungle there. I have to go. And so I went. And I looked online and I was like, okay, there's a couple of hostels here. Your girl was young, but there's a couple of hostels here. I'm going to choose this one. I'll just show up. It'll be fine. I show up at the hostel and it's closed. It's closed. There's nobody there. And your girl did not speak enough Spanish at all. And I had to really follow my intuition. And I was like, you know what? I need somewhere to sleep tonight. So I need to, just gain my confidence and ask a neighbor or somebody. And so I asked some guy, I don't even know, just I think a neighbor of somebody who lived next to the hostel. And he was like, hey, do you need any help? And I was like, yeah, are they open? And he was like, no, and I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version because this was all in broken Spanish, y'all, broken Spanish. Literally, I was like, él es aquí, él es aquí, he is here, he is, literally, the worst Spanish. And but he was like, no, but he's like, it's fine. I have a friend who owns a place. You can stay with them. And when I say place, I mean an established, not just a house, but an actual established, kind of Airbnb. And I just trusted. I had to just let go and trust at that point because I literally had no other choice. It was 6 o'clock and I was like, the sun's about to set in maybe an hour. I can't be out here on these streets in Mexico. And it was beautiful because I actually, when I came to that place, it was perfect because it was across the street, 15-minute walk from the beach, okay? Way closer to the beach than the hostel was. And it was cheaper, way cheaper than the hostel, to the point where I actually ended up staying there for a month and a half. I was just so thankful. I was so thankful because it was the ideal place for me. It was just so beautiful. It was one of the best places I had lived in when I went to Mexico. But if I didn't follow my intuition, I wouldn't have had a place that was across the street from the gym. And probably the best gym in that neighborhood, to be honest. I wouldn't have had, a place that was a 15-minute walk from the beach. I would have had a place where I can just walk up the steps, go to the balcony, and watch the sunset. I wouldn't have had even a kitchen because the hostel didn't have a kitchen. And then I also met a really great friend who showed me around that whole month. So you have to start to reflect on those instances where, because if I really tapped into fear, if I really tapped into my ego, which told me to get out of there, y'all don't even know, but really told me to get out of there. Okay, guess what? We're just gonna give up on this place. We're gonna go to Puerto Escondido instead, which I had already spent some time there. If I had followed that old narrative, that feeling of fear that came up, and not even fear, I would say it was more worry, right? If I hadn't followed that, I wouldn't have had such a beautiful experience. And then on top of that, right? Because I thought, maybe if I go to Puerto Escondido, which was an hour away, I was like, I'll be fine there, right? That whole month is crazy because this place literally is just an hour away, maybe 2 hours. Yeah, maybe 2 hours. That whole month, it was pouring rain, thunderstorms in Puerto Escondido. But the town that I stayed in, I think it wasn't until the day before I left that that there was raining, a lot of rainstorms and stuff like that. So I just realized there's an uninvited guest in my room. So I'll have to deal with that after this. But you really need to start to reflect on those experiences to really bring that into your reality, to get you more tapped into your intuition, okay? So one way you can start doing this now is by tapping into your intuition every day. You can sit down before you go to bed, first thing when you wake up in the morning, and just sit with yourself and just call in your intuition. You can literally just say, I call in my intuition. Today, the soul has taken over. That's it. And then you go by your day. It's literally that simple, okay? So if y'all want more information, more guides on how to follow your intuition consistently, make sure to look in the description below for a full guide on that, okay? I love y'all so much, and I'll see y'all next week. Peace.